Welcome everybody. Today you are joining Journeys to Success, a panel of diverse tech careers. And so we have 3 tech professionals here. My name is Carrie and I'm the moderator today, asking our professionals the questions. If you have additional questions you would like to hear from our guests this morning, please put them in the Q&A chat. So there are 3 tabs. There's chat, polls, and Q&A. So if you've got additional questions, put your questions in the Q&A and we will get to them throughout the session. So I'm going to start off with Julie, and then we're just going to go around. Julie, can you give a brief introduction about yourself and your background and what tech career you're in?
Yeah, hi. My name's Julie Mitchell. I have a background in art and design, and I currently am a front-end web developer working with UI, UX mostly.
Thanks, Julie. We'll go to Lucas next.
Hi, my name is Lucas Mott. I'm a software engineer in Evansville. I currently work for a company called HashiCorp. I'm a senior software engineer there. And I have a computer science degree from the University of Southern Indiana. And I've done a little bit of everything at this point. But right now it's mainly back-end focused software engineering.
Thanks, Sam.
Hello, my name is Sam Stevens. I'm an engineering manager on a company called User Testing. They're based out of San Francisco. And I work on a data platform team. And we primarily work on productionizing AI models that the MLs, machine learning engineers build and do data analytics and stuff like that.
Right. So let's go around again. And will you just share what a typical day looks like in your job?
Sure. Yeah. So for me, a lot of the clients that I work with, we're redesigning or creating a new look and feel or a new website in particular. So we will iterate through several design options for them, focusing on their in-client pain points for them. We will work up designs, give them to them. They'll iterate back what they do and don't like, and then we will code that up in whatever platform they're using. We are usually a .NET shop, so we work with a lot of those platforms, and we often will help them solve information architecture issues, which means how their content is organized, help them create a better user journey, how their end client walks through their site. So it's both more efficient and so that their clients get to the information they want them to get to for either sales leads or contact leads for them. We do things like SEO improvements, so they're better found on Google. We do a lot of accessibility audits and fixes so that their site is user-friendly to everyone. So I'm usually working either designing in a tool or building that design in another tool, HTML, CSS, things like that on a daily basis.
I guess I'll jump in then. A lot of meetings. I'm a manager, so a lot of times planning meetings. We just went through a couple, beginning of the year planning, company kickoff, trying to figure out the product roadmap, making sure we can scope projects correctly, negotiating timelines with other teams and seeing kind of where the blockers are, if our team's a blocker, what our dependencies, etc. And then we also have, as it's the performance reviews coming up. So that's always a hot topic to talk about, especially as our company just went through a merger. So all of that stuff. Yeah, Lucas.
Yeah, so I've been remote since 2019, so that plays a big part in my day to day. So normally the first thing that I'll do when I wake up is help get my daughter ready for school. So I'll at the same time as I'm helping her get ready and trying to convince her to actually that like she wants to go to school today, I'll be checking Slack and emails. And my company has people that work all over the world, so sometimes I get Slacks in the middle of the night, and I have everything muted so I don't have to pay attention to it. But around the morning, I'll start kind of ramping up. My day to day at work is normally split between reviewing other people's code because I'm in a senior position and writing code for myself or doing architecting. It really just depends at what part of the cycle we're at for a project. Sometimes we're really deep into, I'll just write documents for 2 weeks straight. Sometimes I'll be coding for 2 weeks straight. Sometimes I'll be digging into dashboards and monitoring and doing kind of on-call focused stuff for performance, if that's how it ends up. And then we do, I probably have less meetings than Sam because I'm not a manager, but we still have planning meetings. We have, we don't do daily check-ins on Scrum. We do it over Slack, but we do have planning meetings and refining what we're going to do for the next week and things like that.
Question came up in the chat for clarification of what is back-end software engineering?
Yeah, so there are a lot of times if you're talking about web development or software engineering, there's front end, which Julie mentioned, and there's back end. So front end is what the user interacts with. It's kind of like when you're here at this page right now for Next Tech, whenever you type in the chat and the design, that's front end. Back end will be what actually sends your chat message to everyone on this call so you can see it. So I work on the billing team. So my job is to do a lot of taking data that customers put in and reviewing actions they've taken and backing up data and doing stuff the customer never sees, but it's still important because we want to make sure we bill them for the right amount of money.
Thanks for that. All right, since we're talking to high schoolers in this workshop, can you share a little bit about your specific activities or experiences during high school that contributed to the path that you're on in your industry or how you got there?
Well, mine didn't really start in high school. I'd say more college because I had a different kind of path for where I am now. I was the one part that is, I guess, influential was art. I was heavily into the art field, designing things, backdrops, big pieces, installations, things like that. And the art portion is what helped me get to the beginning part of my career before I got into the web portion of my career. But it was really a college moment that made me end up here because I was starting out in psychology. That's what I originally wanted to do. But I didn't want to go to that much school. So I tried to figure out what else I could do. And it was actually my mother that said, since you like art, find something to do with art and computers, since those are the two things you seem to be good at. So at the time, I went into digital design. And so it was graphic design at the time. And that's how my career actually started. And it wasn't until I was on the job later at a graphic design place that they were asking if someone would also help build their small website. I'm like, well, I don't have any experience. And they were like, here's a book, figure it out. And so my first web job was figured out on the job as I did it. But the UI UX portion, I guess, did come from a long background in the art world and the design world and things like that. So you can come from not knowing what you're doing in a second and change that in the tech world because it is a living, breathing thing, you know. So that was my different story than most, I'm sure.
I can go next. So to kind of follow up on that too. So in high school, I did no extracurricular activities. I wasn't in any sports. I wasn't in any clubs. I never found anything that really clicked with me. And the opportunities for computer focused things were not as common when I was in high school. I also didn't have a computer until my school corporation gave all the students netbooks my senior year, which was its own fun thing, which kind of got me interested, was because we all now had our own computer. And I really wanted to understand what makes my computer different from like my friend's computer. How did they set up the passwords? Why is this stuff different? How come I can see his email if I type in this really easily guessable password that they've set for everybody? So that kind of got me interested. I was actually set on doing history right up until I went to my freshman orientation. I did ROTC in college, and I went to an active duty recruiting office. And basically all the recruiters told me that their degrees were a history degree. And they said, there's nothing wrong with that, but just kind of have a job plan. So at orientation, I changed to computer science on a whim, and I took my first programming class, and I loved it. And I kind of lucked into it, and I've really appreciated that decision every day since.
I started off building computers. I had a friend who liked, they all had computers, and I wanted one. So I had to mow a bunch of yards to pay for parts of old computers, and I started building them and putting them together. And that kind of got me into computers in general. And then, a couple of friends, we started making blog websites for ourselves and running my own home network for my family, because I wanted to be on the internet, and having set up the home networks back before you could just buy a couple of euros and, be good to go. You had to have 2 different phone lines, and before Wi-Fi was existing. So you had to run cables through the house to get, connect them all together. But was a lot of what my downtime was spent in high school, was just tinkering with computers, playing around, exploring.
Well, thanks, guys. So as you've gotten into maybe think about your first job and then subsequent jobs between your first and where you are now, can you talk a little bit about moving from one job to another, and what ideas or what focus did you put into what your new company was looking for? Questions about pay also came up in the chat. So if you're comfortable in looking at or helping students manage that discussion about pay with HR and how to transition jobs and figure out if they're getting the best deal, that would be helpful for them.
Okay, so like I mentioned, the very first job I had right out of college was as a graphic designer for a company that manufactured a lot of band uniforms and equipment and things. And I did product design, catalog layout, and then eventually the website design as well. So that kind of grew into a need that they had, and something that I could fill as far as getting into the web portion of that. So it was also their first online ordering system, which was very archaic back then. This was around the year 2000 or so. Sorry. So that I learned on the job. That was I really enjoyed designing things and building things, not just the software portion, but actual products and things. So after I left there, so that job back in the 2000s, starting pay for that was about $30K. But that was way back in the day. I don't even know what the range would be now. But I went from there to my next job that was a hybrid of design and coding. And I learned more of .NET on that job. Most of the jobs that I have had, I have learned the bulk of what I do on the job by either other coworkers or mentors, or just learning it from other online sessions and ways. So that's where I kind of got thrown into .NET, and I don't know if I enjoyed it or not. It just became like second nature, and it was enjoyable to put things together that way. So then I got into really designing the user interfaces and the user journeys and asking those reverse engineering questions of where do you want people to end up? And we start there. And so I think some of the psychology background that I had and then the design background helped clients. Sometimes people don't know what they don't know and they don't know what to ask. So we start at the end instead of the beginning and work backwards to try to figure out what that best solution is for that client. And when I got to work with clients more and got to work with more of the code and interfaces, that's when I started doing more on my own. And I had a brief stint of working as an independent contractor. I didn't like that. I do like working for a company more than working for myself, mainly because I'm the kind of person that doesn't like handling all of the intricacies of owning your own business. But where I am now, and I've been here for a little over 6 years, and I got to say, this is my favorite place so far. We have some of the best clients. My favorite part of working with the current clients is getting to do some really interesting interactive user interface experiments, really, because some of them they just rolled out and we'll see how they play out. But to see something that you designed get put into play and actually have the effect that you were hoping for of watching that web traffic increase and the time people have spent interacting with pages increase, and then the overall contact increase, knowing that what you did actually worked, being able to see that from start to finish is very rewarding. So I think I also sometimes am a little bit mental chaos. So if I jump from one thought to another, you guys can bring me back and, remind me to finish a thought if I need to. But I think I put a period in that sentence.
I can try to answer some of these questions too, I guess. There's a whole bunch of them.
Yeah, we can do that too if we want to, put a pause in the rotation and answer a few questions. Like I'll jump to the interface one here too. It's like, so the interface is literally the front end, the front end picture that you are looking at when you go to any website. That's what I refer to as the front end interface. Like it's the whatever you're interacting with, whether it be just a page or a form or something, it's the thing you're interacting with. Oh, and reverse engineering. Reverse engineering, that basically it's instead of starting from the front and trying to figure out what a good solution is, you ask them, what are you ultimately trying to do? What's your goal? If it's, we want to increase sales, or we want to increase our contact list. Here's our end goal. And then you work back from there to figure out the best strategy to get to that goal. Here, take one about how is building computers easy to do. If you like it.
It can be. I would say it's easier than it was. Now most things now are pretty plug and play as long as you can buy the parts to it. I remember back in the old days we had you don't have to worry about jumper cables anymore, but in the old days some of the cards, peripherals you'd buy, or like the graphics card, the motherboard might not be compatible, so there was little jumpers or little wires you'd have to connect based on what brand they were and what speed they want to operate. But now most of it's just, if it fits without forcing it in, it's probably the right spot. Lucas, do you want to talk about AI?
Well, I was actually there was a pretty like there's a how much do you get paid question that was, I think that was pretty direct. So I figured
Go for
I
it.
could talk about that a little bit. So because one thing I really believe in is like pay transparency. I'm very open on what I make, what I've always made. And a resource I want to give specifically, there's a website called levels.fyi that has a lot of great pay information in there. And the only caveat I'll give is when you start looking at that website, remember that pay, especially now if you're remote, is very largely regional. So like in my company, it's worldwide. It has different geographic regions. I live like north of Evansville, rural Indiana. I'm always in the lowest region. I've just kind of come to expect that. But it wasn't until I moved to a international company from working locally in Evansville. So when I went from working locally here to working for Salesforce based out of, I think they're based out of San Francisco now, that I broke 100K. And it like right now as a senior at HashiCorp, I'm close to like 200 total compensation, and it's taken 12 years of time to get there. Also, literally hundreds of denied applications. Like I've applied to everywhere under the sun, and I've also had to be really picky about where to work because I really value work-life balance. But there are many places that you can go. There are many opportunities you can find. For me, it's always been about persistence, and just remember that you can be picky and end up where you want to be.
Lucas, can you give some clarification by what you mean in a package? Like it's not your total paycheck. There are some other things that account for that total, correct?
Yeah. So at like larger tech companies, what they'll do is they'll pay you in 2 or 3 ways. There you have your base pay, which is like what you get every paycheck. Normally, how a normal job is, like you have a pay you're set paid per year, and then you get paid out of tax. They take taxes and healthcare and all that out, and then you get your paycheck. Another very common way for large tech companies is they'll pay you in stock. So they'll give you an upfront stock amount of X dollars. Like when I joined Salesforce, it was like 100,000 over 4 years. And then you get paid out of that stock, and they give you stock as pay. But that's variable because if the company does well, you make money. If the company doesn't do well, you lose money. It's not reliable at all. But that's very common. And then the third way that companies maybe do it or don't do it is bonus. So sometimes I've seen like between 10 and 15% bonus off of your base pay. Also very dependent on how the company's doing. If they're doing well, it might go up. If they're doing bad, it might just disappear completely.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you.
Yeah, and that's the same for us as well. We get our boss has been very generous about. We're a small company here and based in Evansville, Indiana, and mine's upwards like with everything can be between 90 and 100K. And I say that because it depends on how our client base is for that particular year. If we have a really good year, he gives us back, a lot of what we've made for him, or not him, the company, because he's like, we are the company. And so he's like, this is your money. You've made this. So we get a percentage back of however well we have done for that particular year.
Thanks, guys. In the chat, there was the question I think that would be helpful to answer is, do you think your job about, excuse me, how AI, and do you think your job could be replaced by AI? But I also think for a student perspective, it'd be helpful for them to know if you can use generative chat, things like ChatGPT in your job. What's the ethical qualification, or does your job allow that?
We do. Go ahead.
We do, yeah.
Yeah, we just had it approved like last week, I think, is we can use Copilot now.
So we use it for generating content, particularly content that is tedious. Or some of our clients use it for generating blog content. It's like, this is what they have to do every day. You understand with AI, I'm not really worried about it as far as taking over some of our jobs. It just helps certain tasks work better. Even in generating code, if there's some things you get stuck at, there's some AI situations where they can iterate through bug fixes a lot faster. But the important thing about AI is it's information in, information out. So the quality of information you put into AI is going to determine the quality of AI you get back or you get out of that.
I I like to tell a story. One of my old physics teachers used to say when we could use a TI-83 back in the day, and he called it the idiot machine. It's like, yeah, calculators are great. Same thing with the LLMs. They have limitations. They're idiots. You tell it to do something, it'll respond. I have a cousin who's in law, and their company can't use it because the LLMs create case law, which as a lawyer is not a good thing. So I would say it's a matter of how you want to use it. It's a tool like everything else. Copilot, ChatGPT is a good way to chat with it. We also have created some product features that use it to leverage our own data that we've created. So we have transcription data, we have click data of users' interactions with websites, and we pipe all that data to an LLM to summarize it in a human readable way, which is kind of a new approach to it outside of just chatting with it, using it to do some data analytics stuff for you at scale.
And I'll also kind of talk about it is in terms of danger of replacing jobs. I think that if that were to happen, it would be very short-sighted on a company, because with a ChatGPT or an LLM, it's all about context. So you can only feed so much context into your current question. And like for me, the code system that I work on, we had an incident 2 weeks ago because of a one-line code change. And it's because the person who introduced it, it wasn't their fault. You just have to keep a lot of context in. So whenever we're going through periods where we're just writing documentation for 2 weeks, you can't right now replace that with an AI, because it's going to build on top of bad foundations, and it will probably cause issues. It's great for writing little scripts. I've used it to write scripts a bunch of times, but it's not there to replace people yet. And I don't know if it ever will be, with how large some of the systems that are out there are.
Somebody still has to manage the AI.
All right, so we've got several more here. It says, is there any suggestion you could give for the preparation and build up to a career like yours, and what should they focus on?
I would say I'm biased towards building things. That's how I've done it. That's how I've been successful. That's what I tell my directs. Just start building something. Like when I say building something, I mean build your own website, even if it's on your own computer. There's the first people who made blog articles were people making blog articles about how to make websites and how to create the internet and how to do software. So there's countless resources out there. A Google search, a ChatGPT away of how to get started. Do tutorials, and follow along with tutorials. There's videos that you can get to, and I would just start tinkering that. I'm biased. I'm not smart enough to learn by reading a book. I have to build something and have it explode in my face, and then learn from that. So.
But the good thing is that's what a lot of tutorials do now, are a very hands-on approach. Google has several wonderful online tutorials for just whatever subject you're in, from basic styling to getting started with HTML code to JavaScript, very specific segments of how to build in a site or software. And one thing I have said, and I will say this here, is that at least I can speak for us and our company. I don't know that I can speak for a lot of larger corporations, but I feel like the sentiment is similar in that we care a little bit less on how you got to where you are. What we care about is that you can do the thing we're asking you to do. So you can go a less traditional path as far as education, as long as you can show us that you can create something or build something, and you have that example, like he said, build your own website and have good documentation on how you got there and how you built it, and maybe what tutorials you did. If you taught yourself, great. All that we care about is you can do the thing we ask. So if you taught yourself how to, build a site, how to write code, front end, back end, whatever, it does help to be a part of at least a small system. And so there's what are the tech courses that they have, like 18-month, like quick sessions and things like that. There's some places in Indianapolis and a lot of bigger cities that have some tech sessions like that are outside of your normal college curriculum sort of thing. And if that works for you and you can get from point A to point B, do that. You don't have to spend 4 to 6 years at a traditional college to get a tech career. You just have to be able to do the thing you are needing to be done.
Yeah,
That's my 2 cents on that.
I definitely agree. I've seen the same thing. It's all about if you can do it more than what your background is. About since I've moved into larger tech companies, normally about half of my team will be there because they taught themselves or they did a coding boot camp and not just the traditional college computer science path. And in terms of like interviewing and helping your resume stand out, if you're able to do things that can immediately show that you have created things, that you've built stuff, it helps significantly when you're in the interview process. When I was interviewing locally in Evansville, one time a friend and I were working on a airsoft game where we had 3D printed something and it could like read cards and it would build up points. And I brought that with me to an interview and I got the job because it just shows that, you're thinking about this stuff, you enjoy it. And I'm also a big supporter of open source. Some of the best code that you can find, some of the best code examples out there are open, free software that people make in their spare time. And they're always looking for other folks to join in and code and improve documentation. And that really stands out on a resume. If you can show you've contributed to a GitHub project with 60,000 stars, it stands out.
I'm going to give this question to Sam. There's a couple from Chloe about just finding a company or what companies to work for. But since you have experience in startups and in big corporations, can you talk a little bit about, we've only got 4 minutes left, so just a summary of your experience in both of those realms.
Oh yeah, sure. So the company, it's always about the people. It's kind of flippant to say, but it's true. Like, you find a good team, you find a good people you like to work for, you like to work with. My dad was a construction worker, and he always says, some people work for fun, other people's work at making work fun. So you got to bring that. So it's kind of, there's no one size fits all. Depends on your personality. Know yourself, know what kind of companies you want to work for, and then figure out the team dynamic. And the only way you're really going to learn that is just trial and error and adjusting to the situation as it comes. You're going to meet lots of people, lots of quirky people, lots of people you don't agree with, lots of people that are super smart but hard to communicate with, lots of people that are all over the board. And then I would say, like, for the startups, that one is interesting. A startup, if for those who don't know, is basically a small company that starts at ground zero and tries to solve a problem. And, if all goes well, you IPO and get a bunch of money. If like most things, it doesn't go that way, and you end up getting the experience, though, it helps you power level in a way, and then it'll lead to other jobs, as similar to the projects that we talked about with. And those you can find either during college is a good way to do it. If you can find entrepreneurial networks to get connected to that are doing startups. If you have your own passionate problem, if you can find a problem that you are passionate about, then I would say go try and solve it. But you have to be really passionate about this problem. Otherwise, you're going to get bored of it real quick. But start with a really, really hard, really passionate problem you're passionate about that you want to solve.
All right, we're going to end. Thank you, guys. One last question for all of you. What's your favorite thing about your job to inspire these kids on their journey?
Making my directs laugh.
I just like the fact that I get to build new things and solve problems. That's what it boils down to for me.
Yeah, I think I might have covered this before, is when you design something cool that actually does the job that it was intended to do. It's just satisfying to watch something work from beginning to end.
Right. Thank you all for your time today. Thank you to all of our students here for all of your thoughtful questions. I know there was a lot that we couldn't get to. We've just simply run out of time, but your questions are logged, so we will try to update some and get back to your teachers. But this has been recorded, and you can come back and watch if there's anything you want to relearn. All right. Thank you all.
Bye, everyone.
Have a great day.